It's my pleasure to be sitting here today with Clarence Tsung. Clarence, how long have you been specifying and designing electrical systems?
Well, since the beginning of my electrical design career, that's 1954. Nearly 60 years. It's way too long. When I was an engineer at a company in New York at that time, we were contacted by U.S. Air Force. Since we always been using rotating equipment as a supplementary source in case of a power failure, even for computer, flying wheel, diesel generator, and at the popularity of the solid state physics and the transistor and the SCR, all these things, Air Force asked us to encourage or design, put a guideline design for the so-called solid state UPS system. And the first job we put in there, that's the Air Force Academy. That's genuinely the first edition of a solid state UPS system. And this could become a museum item someday if IT has a museum somehow, and I certainly suggest that UPS become a museum pieces. And that's the project I remember the best.
What do you see as the major changes that have impacted the data center world?
In the beginning, the introduction of computers, the big corporation, to start to make a big box. Those big boxes need a room to house these big boxes. And that become the introduction of a computer room. Computer room also impress people with a very good corporate America's image for modern work. A lot of these companies have that room, invite the visitors for client to impress the business venture. Plus they all have, I remember they all have a four-sided glass door, a glass walls in the sense, so everybody can see it. It's a clean room, laboratory type of concept with a raised floor. The raised floor to house the cables and the air, environmental air. These are the beginning, and eventually they have so many big equipment, including all the supporting equipment, become the so-called today have a data center concept, become modern IT network kind of facilities.
Well, what do you see as the major changes that are coming in the future?
We need to know the data center consume a lot of electric power. And with today's environmental consideration, we must have this in mind. We should not make this big data center as a gas gathering of this major corporation to waste a lot of energy, electricity, stuff like that. So we gotta go green, make everything more efficient. Use the modular concept if possible. You can be added on if they're needed. You don't put all the things in one shot. And you have to monitor the electrical usage to generally let the whole world know they're concerned about the electrical usage. The pollution of a generator is also a major consideration. That had to be addressed, and had to use as little as the pollution as possible when those diesel generators in operation. And green building, green data center is the next urgent matter.
For the young engineers just starting out, what words of wisdom would you impart?
This data center business is a mix of electrical power, power electronics. MEP portion is mostly the cooling end of it. A young engineer involved in this kind of design, you must have the general knowledge of all these issues I just mentioned. If you are not learned in college for the electrical power, I understand that most college doesn't offer this courses anymore, you gotta know through literature, magazine article, everything, to learn at least the medium voltage electrical power distribution. My humble advice for you, I'm entitled to take a PE exam. Don't be lazy. Take the PE test. Someday this may become your meal ticket.
If you could do anything differently in your career, what would it have been?
I will spend more time to study the power system reliability. Make sure the supplying power side is more reliable. Make sure nothing unusual accidentally trip out due to the lack of a good design. And make sure I understand more about the system reliability and a little bit more about the power electronics. That's what I want to, if I can do it again. That's the area I'm lacking, basically.
Where do you see the bigger trends falling? Electrical, mechanical, software, all of the above?
In addition to the 3-4 items you just mentioned, we need to have the general public to believe or to trust the data center industry. They are not deliberately wasting energy. The green data center concept, you got to let the public to know you try everything to accomplish that. This is the reason, and for environmental purpose, the data center is not only to reduce electric usage or power usage, but also reduce the footprint of the pollution end of a business. And on top of that, it's a good publicity and give a good corporate image for whoever owns this data center, because we don't want the public to think we are the gas guzzler of that electronic enterprise.
And Clarence, everyone is interested. How did you get the name Clarence?
Well, I came to this country in 1954 as a standby Fulbright scholar, which I did apply. I didn't know whether I was going to get it, but I was notified. I come in as a last minute, already late. In late September, I get to New York at the Polytech, and the dean asked me if you have a place to stay. I said no. He recommended a place. The only room left is along Livingston Street in Brooklyn. Is a 5-story walk-up as a one single room near the skylight. And there is a payphone in the basement. The landlady, every time I receive a phone call, because I start to contact someone I already knew back in the old country and in the New York area. So she got tired of calling me, and they tried to create my Americanized name. I said, I don't like those names. So eventually, I put several business cards from my friend in Taiwan, some of the GIs I got to know at that time. As a result, she picked a name called Clarence Hunter, so I decided to use that. She was against a little bit in the beginning, but I decided to use that. So the next day, that time I was teaching Dynamo Lab at the Polytech. It's very noisy, AC/DC machine, generator, motors, everything. So I already introduced to my colleague and a student, saying my name from now on is Clarence, call me Clarence. So during the noisy classroom, the Dynamo Lab room, people start to ask me questions, shouting my name across the hall. I had no idea they were calling me. So, well, you got a new name. One day I got a call from the department head at the Polytech EE department, Professor Ernst Weber. He later on became the president of Polytech, also became president of IEEE. He said that you and I go to Washington, D.C. So we take a train to Washington, D.C. that day. And I had no idea. He said, we're going to the White House. And there was some gathering with other your fellow Fulbright scholar. So he was there, very happy, because every person can have somebody accompany that person. So Professor Weber accompanied me. And lo and behold, President Dwight D. Eisenhower showed up, shake my hand. I introduced officially, said, my name's Clarence. That's how I'm official. On top of that, when I become naturalized citizen, there's a line in there, says also known as, AKA. No, I say Clarence is my AKA name. That is the whole story.